Hello, welcome to my channel, Mornings to Mornings. I want to come to you. I say morning, it's not morning, it's evening, but the scripture that I base this channel off is Psalms 30 and 5. It says, "For his anger endureth but for a moment, in his favor is life. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning." So that's basically what morning is. It's from morning to darkness to morning to light. And anyway, I've lost my husband, and I told that in the last video. But today I want to come to you and tell you about my near-death experience and what has happened to me these last 8 years. Maybe this will help somebody, I hope. But I lost my husband back in 2016. I lost my mother a year and 3 weeks later, to be November the 9th, 2017. And then in January I lost a sister. And then in 2019, so it's 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019 I lost my brother and my sister. And this kind of goes with the story that I have to tell. I know it was a God thing, and just bear with me to get through it. It might take me a little bit, but after we lost my sister in 2018, that's when we realized that my brother had cancer, and he was real sick, and I didn't get to see him but one time, but I'm thankful, before he passed, but I'm thankful for that. And 3 weeks, no, so he died 3 years to the day. We buried my husband October 19th, 2019 is when he passed away. Well, my sister, my oldest sister, she's had a hard time in life, and her name was Biddy Mae, and she had lost a husband when she was like 19, and she had 3 children, babies, and on Memorial Weekend. Well, in 1994, after she remarried later on through the years, and she had another child, and in 1994 on a Memorial Weekend, he committed suicide. So she definitely knew what grief was, and she was a very strong lady, though. Before she died, she gave her heart to the Lord, and my brother did too. And I'm so thankful for that, because that's where hope sets in. And we can go from morning to morning to know that one day we'll see him again. But what happened back in 2019, I had a kidney stone. And my sister, we went Christmas shopping and did a few things. It was not quite Thanksgiving. And she was real persistent on wanting to get all the family together for Thanksgiving. She kept saying that and saying it, but she never made it to Thanksgiving. I think it was November the 18th, 2019, I think that's when I had woke up at 4 something in the morning with excruciating pain, and it had radiated to the front, and I didn't know if it was my appendix or what, but my daughter took me to the hospital. When we got to the hospital, I was in a lot of pain, and he had called the kidney doctor, and I was begging him to keep me because I knew I was really sick, and he wouldn't listen to me. He was very rude to me, the emergency room doctor. And he told me, he went and did a CT scan and come back and told me that it was a large one and that I would be okay. And I said, please don't send me home. I'm very sick. I'm in a lot of pain. I'm just really sick. Can you just keep me and give me an IV or something? No, nope. And I had insurance. I had Blue Cross Blue Shield. They should have. I don't know. People that are in the insurance world knows how that works. I don't. But I had insurance. But I kept begging him, please don't send me home. He said, I passed one bigger than that at work. He said, you'll be fine. He said, the next doctor that comes in here, he'll give you some good meds and you'll be all right. Well, they give me medicines, and then I come home, and I didn't even, he went ahead and made an appointment to get in to see the kidney doctor. Well, I woke up probably a day and a half later, and I didn't even know what day it was. I didn't even know what happened. I was just in a lot of pain, and my daughter told me, she said, "No, Mama, this is a whole nother day," because I had slept and didn't know. Well, during that time, I started getting sicker and sicker, and I had an appointment to go to that doctor. And before my sister had sent me a text, she said, "I heard what happened to you." She said, "What are they going to do?" And I was so sick I couldn't text her back. And that was her last text that she texted me. I think it was the night before I went to the hospital. I think she had a massive heart attack. Well, she ended up on life support. So here I was, lost my brother in October. Well, about maybe 3 weeks to the day, or a month, just 1 month, and just trying to deal with that. Then getting a kidney stone, and then the other grief, So I heard that she had had a heart attack, and at that time I was getting sicker, and my daughter would bring me food to try to get me to eat, but I couldn't eat. I was too sick. So the next day I had a doctor's appointment to go see the kidney specialist. So Maddie wanted to go see her Aunt Benny Mae. So my other sister said, "I'll take her to the doctor." So she took me to the doctor, and she was picking on me because I couldn't walk. I didn't know I was dying. I've been a CNA and a sitter for years, and I've worked with hospice and seen death, and I couldn't even discern it, that was what was happening to me. All I know is that I couldn't walk. I just couldn't do it. I didn't know that I was in the dying process, okay? So, that being said, we go to the kidney doctor. He plans a day that we're going to get those out, the kidney stone out. And so I continue taking my medicine, come back home. My sister took me, or my daughter, she met with my daughter, and then my daughter took me, because she might have had to go to work or something. Anyway, my son ended up getting me and bringing me back home, and she had my clothes laid out where I could go take a bath and everything. And so I got in the bed, and I got sicker. So she had told my son, she said, no, my son told her, he said, when she come home, he said, "Keep an eye on Mom." He said, "She's acting really weird." She said, "Okay." Well, she come in there crying, and she kept telling me, "Mom, eat a cracker, drink some Gatorade." And I couldn't. I was too sick. But the night before, she had come in there and told me that my sister had had a heart attack, and she didn't know if she was going to live. And this was the night before I got the E. coli set in, and I left this out. But I told her, I said, "No, she's not going to die. She's just going to go to heaven and come back and tell us what it is." And that was crazy. And that's when we didn't know, but I had sepsis, and that's why I wasn't thinking right. But anyway, in the next night, she was trying to get me to eat. Well, I remember getting up and going to the bathroom because I was throwing up and just really sick, like I had a stomach virus, but it was E. coli. It was poison from that kidney stone, and sepsis had set in. And I was going into sepsis shock, okay? So I go in there, and I come back from the bedroom, and her friend are in there watching, I guess, Christmas movies or something. And when I get to the bed, I fell over backwards, and my legs was jerking. And I couldn't lay in the bed. I fell crossways. And I was laying there, and I thought, well, I'm having labored breathing like my mom did. And I thought, this isn't good, but I wasn't scared. I had peace. I was just in a lot of pain and very sick, but my spirit man I was good. Well, I happened to look over to the left, and that wall, it opened up. It was like a portal. I kid you not. It didn't look like a portal. It just looked like it opened, like you could just walk into heaven. And I looked, and I seen beautiful leaves. They look like fall leaves. I don't know. I know in the Bible it talks about the tree of life, the leaves are for a healing. I thought, well, maybe that's what God was showing me, is that He was going to heal me. But there was my grandpa. and he was standing there smiling, and I'll put a picture up there to see. He didn't have, but he had all his teeth, every one of them, and he looked to be about maybe 40 or 50. He wasn't real old. He was more filled out. It was crazy, and I kept looking at him. I didn't remember my grandpa. I was like 2 when he died, and the only way I remember seeing him is in pictures, okay? So he's sitting there, or not sitting there, he's standing there. He kind of comes forward, and behind him is like beautiful rolling hills, like really green grass, and it was really pretty. And I don't remember. It seems like there was something here, but I can't remember what it was. But all I could do was see him reach his hand out for me. But he would wipe his mouth and smile at me and reach his hand out. He knew I was his granddaughter. And I said, that's my grandpa. I thought, that's Grandpa Pelly. And I kept looking at him and just looking at him, and he'd wipe his mouth and reach his hand out. Well, there's a reason why he was doing that. And I thought, well, he's either here to get me or a Beanie Mae. You know, he's fixing to, I'm fixing to cross over. Well, when Maddie heard me in there, and I guess I was taking my last breath, and I know this is kind of embarrassing, but my eyes was crossed. I mean, I was just basically gone. And I could hear her hollering for me. And I could hear her, saying, Mama, Mama, she's had a stroke, something's not right. I was unresponsive, but I could hear her. So all I could do was look at Grandpa. I heard what she said. She said, I'm going to get my nephew. So she come over here. He lived here at the time. The other house is next door. So she goes and gets him, and I'm still looking at Grandpa, and I see, while that goes on, I see it's like a silhouette of people. There's no shadows in heaven, but heaven, there's a veil between us and them. And heaven's light was shining on that veil, and I could see them waving, and there was quite a few people. It looked like a crowd of people. They was excited, and I thought, I was looking, but I couldn't tell who they were. And they gathered around my grandpa, but all I could see was their silhouettes. And I could see beautiful green hill, like a big hill, like a rolling hill, behind him. And as time goes on, it kind of fades too. But I realized that when you are dying and you're a Christian, that is amazing, because I didn't have any fear. I was fine, just like looking at this camera, just talking. It's like going from one room to another. I could have just walked through there and I'd have been right with my loved ones. And it was just not, there was no fear whatsoever. So anyway, I just kept watching him and looking at those people, and just, and it was just amazing. Well, my nephew came over there, and he's a physical therapist. He tried to pick me up. Well, when they started picking me up, my blood pressure, I guess, started coming back up, but I was still very critical. And all I could see, that vision, or that portal, I guess it closed, I don't know. I just remember them coming in the room. But the thing is, I could only see tunnel vision, because I was still pretty much in the spirit, I guess is what you say. Because when you die, you're in the spirit world, okay? So I couldn't see nothing but tunnel vision. My peripheral vision was gone. And I could just see him, and he was trying to pick me up, and I was just jerking. My body was convulsing. I was in complete kidney failure and didn't know it. So he laid me back down. They called my little daughter-in-law, who was an RN at the time, and her and my son come over, and she was trying to help me, and she couldn't help me. So they called 911 and got the ambulance down here. And during that time, I couldn't see. I mean, I wasn't scared. I was just unresponsive, just like I had been all day. I was going through the stages of death and didn't even know it. But so the paramedic come in, and I don't know who all first responders was there. I remember seeing my friend's son, and then another preacher I heard was there. I didn't see him because I couldn't see. But I remember the paramedic trying to get me to drink some juice because he thought maybe it was my blood sugar, but it wasn't. I couldn't talk to him. So they loaded me up in a sheet, and they all hauled me out in that sheet and put me in the ambulance. And I couldn't tell you who all was there. I remember hearing voices. They got me in the ambulance, and before they would even move me, they got me stable. Well, I started coming to myself then, and I was more in my flesh. And I don't remember hurting or anything. I was just, sometimes though, when you die, you don't feel pain like you do when you start coming back. Then, it's weird how that happens, but it is. And the paramedic looked at me. He said, "You're not good." He said, "You're not good at all." And I thought, well, I'm dying. So I made it to, barely remember the ambulance trip on the way up there. I remember them getting me off of the ambulance. And my family was already up there because my sister had had a massive heart attack. She was on a ventilator. So they called and said that they're bringing me. So she thought, well, one of my sisters said, oh, well, they'll just give her some medicine. They didn't realize I was dying. So they get me up there, and I'm in complete kidney failure. Okay, things are shut down. My platelets are 8. I'm, which we know I died and come back, basically. But I had come to, and I was sitting up in that little gurney bed thing, or whatever you call it, and my daughter was in there. And then I don't remember them leaving, but they left, and they had took me down and put a stent in me. I don't know if that was before or after they come in. I don't know. But I do remember all of a sudden the door opened, and there was my son, both my sons, my daughter, my sister, and my nephew, and they were all crying and praying for me. And I said, well, did she pass? Because I was worried about my sister. And they said, no. My son come up to me, and I appreciate his honesty. He said, no, Mama. He said, it's not her. He said, it's you. They give you a 1 in 3 chance of surviving this. And he said, and if you do survive, you're probably going to be on a vent or kidney dialysis, and you'll never work again. It's going to completely disable you. And it has. It did disable me. I'm on Social Security now because of sepsis. So anyway, I sat there for a minute. I said, no. I said, God made me a promise. And I looked at my daughter. I said, He made you a promise. And I looked at my sons. I said, we're going to be in church again one day. That's the last thing I remember. Next thing you know, I come to. I didn't have a mind. I was seeing like cartoon characters. But I knew my sister was next door. They put us side by side in ICU, and they didn't know we were sisters. So I was dying, she was dying, so there was 2 people up there at one time dying, and my family would go back and forth between rooms. I would wake up and see people walking by and looking at me, and they would just look at me, and I would try to talk to them, and I couldn't, because once sepsis sets in your mind, it's like having Alzheimer's, okay? I would go to say something, but my mind, I didn't have no control over my words. It come from my heart, but my words was just crazy. But anyway, I stayed in there and battled that horrible disease, and all my family come up there, and I would see people, and I love my family. I'm so thankful I had family. And my sister was next door, and I kept telling them she's in between worlds, because I knew what had just happened to me. So anyway, 4 to 5 days roll by, and I finally get stable enough that they're going to put me in a room. Well, she's still on the vent, okay? They rolled me out to take me to another room, and they let me stop, and I got to look, and I got to see my sister on that ventilator. I didn't get to hold her hand. I didn't get to tell her goodbye. That's all I got. And it hadn't been but 2 or 3 weeks. We've been sitting on my porch all day planning a cruise, because she got to go on a cruise with us, and she loved it. And she had come over to watch Christmas movies with Maddie. So anyway, they rolled me out and put me in a room. And the room that they put me in was some kind of over something. But the nurses did not take care of me. They got mad at me because I couldn't help give myself a bath. I had just come off of a horrible ordeal. I couldn't even move my legs. I was in excruciating pain from my back. They put my food tray over here, and they didn't even push it over. And finally someone come in there and did it. But the time that all that took place, that was the last time I see my sister, because after I left the room beside her, within hours she passed. So on top of all that, we lost her, and then they finally got me in a room, and I was in such pain. I was on morphine and hydrocodone because the pain was excruciating. I would literally shake. I couldn't stand the pain. I honestly am telling you the truth. I heard the devil in my ear mocking me every time I would hurt. I would hear him making fun of me. I could hear his voice, and it wasn't spirit. I could hear him. But you know what I did the whole time? I praised the Lord. I didn't complain. I didn't dig a hole, because I knew that if I did that, it was going to get worse. I was going to get in bad mental shape. I did not do that. I just started praising the Lord. Every time I hurt, I pictured the Lord on the cross, and I just started praising, because I knew what he went through. He went through for our suffering, and he was going to get me through this. And I started praising him. And it's like being stuck in the mud to praise your way out of it. And God got me through that. I finally got to come home. I was in there through Thanksgiving. Just lost my sister. It was so depressing. The day that they had her funeral, I was up there, and everybody went to the funeral, so I was by myself. I could not walk. So I get up. A physical therapy gets me up and puts me in a chair. And I know this is lengthy, but this is what happened. This is my testimony. And it's a miracle. It really is. Set me in that chair, and I couldn't walk. And I was thinking about my sister, and I'd lost my brother and others before. And there was so much grief, I couldn't grieve over one. I was just like, I am just not good. This is horrible. But I remember when we went on our cruise, she gave me a pen that her daughter-in-law had give her for when her son had killed himself. And that little pen was an angel, and she gave it to me, and I put it on my Bible cover, and I had my Bible up there. And I was sitting there, and I was thinking, I can't even go to him. I didn't, I just felt I didn't get to tell my other sister about it. I mean, it's just really feel like I had been just cheated. And I look over there, and I see that Bible with that little bitty gold pen, and the Lord reminded me that he had saved her before she died, and my brother had gotten saved. So I thought, no, devil, you didn't win. God took them home. He saved them and took them home. And I started praising the Lord. Well, I started getting better. And I was also going to tell you, and I need to add this in there, and I left this out. When my grandpa was the reason why I told you, I said just watch and see. Later I'll tell you why he was wiping his mouth. I only knew him through pictures, okay? Well, my niece and two other people told me, they said, yeah, he wiped his mouth a lot. He kept a napkin in his hand, and he always had that napkin, and he was always wiping his mouth. And I thought, well, that's neat. And I thought, well, they recognized it. Well, about a year or two after that happened, I asked the Lord, I prayed, I said, Lord, why was he wiping his mouth? And he spoke to me. And he don't often do that, but he did. And he said, it wasn't for you. It was for them so they would believe. And also, while I was in the hospital with the blood clots, a nurse came in there and she said, you know, that life after death stuff's real. And I said, oh yeah. I didn't tell her what had happened to me. But she told me a story of a guy that had died from a heart attack. And he went to this woman, and she was holding her hand out. He didn't recognize her. I don't even know if he had family. Sometimes our people up there might be our ancestors. I don't know, but it goes back quite a ways from what I understand and have heard others talk about. But he kept saying, he could hear her hollering his name. He said, but that woman would reach her hand out. He said, but behind her, he said, I seen a lot of people. He said, but it looked like silhouettes. And when she shared that with me, I knew that was the Lord confirming, because the devil will sure try to make you think you're crazy. But even though you got proof in the medical part that really happened, but he still fights our minds. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there. That's why he showed me that he was wiping his mouth, was because of that's what he used to do, and he wanted us to know that what I was saying was real, because I was too and didn't remember that. Anyway, that's what I wanted. That's what happened with that.